Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here with Casey Cooley.
Hello, everybody.
This is episode 299. Case. We got one more week until our big 300. I can't even believe I'm saying 300 episodes next week.
There's not many that have gone past 300.
No, and
Star Wars podcasts.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end. But hope everybody's doing well out there. We know these are obviously difficult times. Not only have we been talking about the pandemic, but now we've got a lot of stuff going on, protests and whatnot. So, rightfully so. But it's I don't know. It's just always a good time for us to talk Star Wars and maybe break away from some of that stuff right now, and hopefully entertain everybody with some Star Wars news and thoughts. And because we're still here and we're still trying to contribute a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I encourage everybody listening to. Hopefully, you're following other Star Wars podcasts and other Star Wars people in the Star Wars community, because it's not silent either. There's a lot of support and a lot of voices coming out in support of the movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, and so I just encourage everybody to follow all these people and support where and when you can.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It was good to. Yeah, it's good to see. It's tough because you're on social. You're seeing a lot of negative things as well, but you do see some positive stuff, and it's just up to every one of us, I feel like, to do better and be better. And I do see a lot of people, because I follow a lot of Star Wars people. There are a lot of, and I feel like we've talked about these the last few weeks too. Just not even coincidentally with what's happening, but a lot of the values of Star Wars, family absolutely. And hope, and those things couldn't ring louder now these days.
I mean, there's some people, the guys from UTini, I think it was Corey, who said something like, he's reading a lot of people out there that obviously forgotten what Star Wars is about.
Right.
Speaking to those who are vocally against what's happening, vocally against the Black Lives Matter movement. So, it's definitely a reflective time that we all need to take part in and figure out what each of our roles need to be.
Right. So, hope you can sit back and kind of listen a little bit and enjoy what we're going to talk about. And we're open to everybody kind of obviously telling us your thoughts on everything that's happening around the world and around Star Wars.
Yeah. There's still great content. Just yesterday, Queen's Peril came out.
Yes.
So that's,
and rightfully so. People didn't, really say anything yesterday with the whole blackout kind of thing. So everybody kind of held off, but we'll talk about that today on this show and kind of our first thoughts of that. I just started the audiobook, but I know Casey's already read kind of his advanced copy, so we'll talk about that here shortly. But first thing I wanted to mention, because it's just still making me laugh, that there's still a countdown for a Star Wars Celebration. And I'm just baffled right now. I don't know what to even think.
Well, because there's other, obviously there's tons of conventions that have been canceled and postponed. It seems like a lot of them are either pushing or kind of holding. Well, the ones that are in August are holding off, not just Star Wars Celebration, because other conventions are either being pushed to kind of the August, September months, or they're just not being told what's going on. So it seems like they're going to be holding off to the last possible second, unless we get told tomorrow. But it just seems like they're holding off.
They could, yeah. There was a big announcement the other week, a couple weeks, or last week, I think it was, about the reopening of Walt Disney World down in Orlando, but still no word about Disneyland in Anaheim, where Star Wars Celebration is going to be held. So I would have felt a little bit better if Disneyland had a reopening plan that maybe this is still going to happen.
True.
But since that has not happened yet, or they haven't even mentioned it, then it still makes me think that California is going to be. I mean, California is technically in lockdown until August. We have somebody that we actually worked with that moved out there. She actually just moved back because she can't work until August, and it's not going to really work out for her. So, so it is tough times out there. But if things aren't even, phase one is going to start in August out there, you would think that conventions aren't going to be a part of phase one, right? So, I'm not really optimistic that's going to happen, but who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I know Kentucky is in a quite different situation than most of the other states out there. Fortunately, we had some good low numbers, but, I was just reading today or yesterday about the Kentucky Department of Education laid out some of their options on how schools can open. So already the schools are most likely open. It'll be in a very different way. It's not going to be
depending on which option they go with. Yeah,
it's not going to be completely normal. So that being, saying that, I'm meaning to say is the glimmer of hope that I keep holding on to. If the schools open, in August, then I feel like a lot of the world will follow suit.
Yes,
but I don't think if celebration happens, it won't be full celebration. It's like Disney World. It's like Disney World has all these restrictions. It's like, well, might as well not go to Disney World then. It's like,
no, correct. Yeah. And unfortunately, and by no means am I saying that you shouldn't go out there and protest and do the things that people are doing right now as far as making their voices heard. But, in large cities that this is happening right now, it's to me, it's going to be obvious that the coronavirus might actually come back a little bit in those cities.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So you've got a lot of people out there gathering, when should be social distancing happening. But again, this is a different time and a different cause right now. So it's understandable, but there's going to be consequences, I think, with some of that stuff. And LA is one of the locations that, there's a lot of protests going on. So it doesn't look good for a celebration, but again, we still haven't heard anything. So who knows?
I mean, I definitely feel like if it doesn't happen in person, they'll have some virtual form of it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking there's going to be some kind of announcement that celebration is still going to happen, but in some form or another. Because I gotta feel like moving it to next year, dates are going to be slim pickings, and they may not want the ideal time. Plus, D23 is still scheduled for next year, so they haven't had those in the same years really. So who knows? And again, we'll see. Actually, I think they had them the same year last year, but I don't know.
This was supposed to become the alternate
year kind of thing, right? Yeah. So but I'm sure they'll tell us whenever they feel like it's necessary. But people that have plans, I guess they still have plans, and hotels and flights booked and all that stuff. So, so that's Star Wars Celebration. I think the other big news we'll kind of run through here, just getting out today a little bit, some reports coming out which is not unexpected considering all the casting rumors that have been around and released surrounding mainly characters coming from Star Wars Rebels, namely Sabine and Captain Rex, of course, Ahsoka. But now today, more talk coming that they are casting for a live-action version of Thrawn, which is pretty awesome and pretty expected, I feel like.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I just can't believe that this would be a Mandalorian season 2 thing. Like, I almost feel like there's either just a cross communication error of like really they're talking about a Rebels sequel show,
Yes.
but people are thinking it's Mandalorian, or maybe there's again, even if all these characters appeared in one episode of Mandalorian as a backdoor pilot, that just seems so much like a stretch for me to think that would happen. I mean, Ahsoka, Sabine, and even Rex, I love that, but you throw Ezra and Thrawn into it, that's a whole other story. You can't stumble upon that, unless this is, and I would hate if this is the case, unless if this was after those events, like they've found Ezra and Thrawn already, and they're already back or something like that. I don't know. It can't. I don't believe it's part of Mandalorian. All these people, maybe some.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think at this point, especially, we got to remind everybody, season 2 of Mandalorian has already wrapped production. So these casting rumors that are coming out, it's a little bit of a stretch to think that they're casting still for scenes that are going to be shot for season 2.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think if there would be a way to where they're finding old casting rumors, but you're right. There's no way they would, especially not now. Like, they're not going to be shooting now. I mean, well, some productions are resuming in other parts of the world, but
this could be Cassian isn't finished. This could be a casting cameo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Thrawn's around around that point.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. there's still different shows that are possible that they now. It is rumored in the article that it sounds like they're setting up for a spin-off series involving Thrawn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at that point, it just seems like they're including that in every casting rumor. So,
oh yeah, Thrawn's gonna be in that too.
Yeah, but with these castings, especially from the Rebels characters, it does sound like, to me, like you just said, I think it does sound like to me there's a whole series that is getting cast that is a continuation of Rebels. Now, some of those characters like Ahsoka and Sabine may show up in Mandalorian for an episode, but then I think a lot of this is centered towards that other live action series, which would be crazy to think that, Filoni has Rebels. I'm sorry, Filoni has an animated Clone Wars series, then an animated Rebel series, and then his third one is actually a live action series. That's actually crazy to think. I mean,
I just keep thinking, whenever you make the jump, this kind of a jump. I mean, you're still in the television world, but you're going from animation to live action. There's still an audience jump to me. I think
100% agree.
It's like,
and you can't do a lot of the things you did in animation now in live action because it costs a lot more money.
Yeah.
So to adjust to that is going to be tough.
Well, granted, the set pieces side of things, what we're seeing with the galleries and the volume, technology. I mean, it's already amazing, and they keep talking about pushing the boundaries even further every single time they use it. So who knows? Gosh, I mean, again, you're still only talking about set pieces, but I have no doubt now. I have full confidence now that they can pull off crazy, amazing set pieces.
Like you can realistically do Coruscant now in that space.
Oh yeah.
Whereas before you might not be able to.
Yeah, I love that. And then the only thing is like just story development. If we get if there's a live action Rebels show in the same format as Mandalorian, where they're short 30, maybe 40-minute episodes, and it's like 8, it has to be a different format, either longer episodes or more episodes, because there is some backstory you have to tell. And I don't know how quickly you can tell it. If you're continuing. If it's a Rebels 2, essentially a sequel, where Sabine and Ahsoka are going to find Ezra and Thrawn in the unknown regions, I mean, wouldn't you have to spend some time to talk about what's just happened? Like, because this is a new audience. I wouldn't think the majority of them have seen Rebels. Do you have to see that in order to understand where the story is going further? I mean, you have to know why Ezra and Thrawn are there, and then who Thrawn is, who Ezra is. I don't know. It seems like a lot to me.
Yeah, that is a tough call because, Yeah, you're right. That is a tough call because I think you have to the brilliance of Rebels,
Mm-hmm.
which made it work. I feel like was you didn't the lead characters weren't the characters from the Clone Wars. You had a whole new group of characters, and we didn't know going into season 1 that this was going to connect at all to the Clone Wars, right? I mean, you had no idea that the Darksaber was going to come back. Jedi were going to come back. You know, it's like you had all these elements that he pulled from Clone Wars brilliantly through the storylines of the Ghost Crew, right? So how do you do that with like a new live action series that's connected with Rebels? Mm-hmm. You easily could try to follow that formula where you create new characters and then maybe you bring in Ahsoka and Sabine at that point, but But then again, you do have, I feel like maybe fans like me and you that, we want a live action Ahsoka and live action Sabine to drive this thing. But you're right. It's hard to balance that audience that's not familiar with Rebels.
I mean, but I'm all for if they just want to take the risk and not have to explain too much and just like, hey, if you want to know, just go watch Rebels.
Go back and watch Rebels. Yeah.
I mean, that's your homework.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm totally on board with that. You're not going to lose me.
And now that it all lives on Disney Plus, it's easy to do that, right? Yeah. So it's definitely possible. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I have hope because of the whole when they brought Maul into Solo, that was a big jump. You have people asking a lot of questions.
Oh,
but it was a risk. It's a risk that would pay off if they continue with it and continue with Maul in live action in that era. But if they don't, then it's kind of like a kind of a one-off, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But in this case, I'm all for that. Especially if whatever how we are first introduced to Ahsoka. If we're first introduced in Mandalorian season 2, for a couple
that's
episodes,
the case.
Then at least there's your lead character in this spin-off series of Rebels, the sequel Rebels series. At least you know who the lead character is, Ahsoka, and then she can, as a character, she can kind of help introduce you to the other ones, So I think there's a way. Obviously, there's a way. It's just how risky they want to be and how much how much time do they have to tell these stories. I like to hope. Hopefully, the formats will get longer episodes. I'm okay. I'm okay with short seasons, just longer episodes at least.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah. So moving on to some other bit of good news that came out. Actually, I'm just now reading this update. I didn't realize what happened here. But for those of you who didn't know, there is a new kids Star Wars show that's debuting called Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge. Mm-hmm. Pretty cool concept. It's got Padawans, I guess, young Padawan kids that are competing in some physical challenges. What's the show that they kind of talked about it comparing to?
I immediately think of it as Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Nickelodeon show. It's more so that than Double Dare. It's because Legends of the Hidden Temple was a challenge based show. You had teams of kids competing in obstacles and to find the totem. But this looks, gosh, man, it's just, if this was out when I was a kid, I would have fought tooth and nail with my parents to send me to LA.
Yes,
I want to be on the show because this does look like every kid's dream.
Yes, so it's a game show set in the galaxy far away, and again, with everything Star Wars trying to do now, they're trying to canonize this a little bit. So they've created characters to host the show, and God bless him for employing Ahmed Best again.
Yeah,
Ahmed Best has come back and is now actually playing a character, which I think is really cool. Mm-hmm. He's playing a Jedi Master Keller and Beck.
Yeah.
And Keller and Beck is what they're saying is technically related to a Ahmed Beck, which is, if those who don't know, is the character from episode 2, Attack of the Clones, that Ahmed Best played without obviously any makeup on, so you can actually see him, but he's just a character in the bar in the underworld there, where when Anakin and Obi-Wan pursue Zam down in the underworld, right? So he's playing Master Kellerman Beck, and the droid that is standing there, AD3, which is voiced by Mary Holland, is part of it as well. So obviously there's always got to be a droid involved in Star Wars, which is great. But they are there kind of running the competition that these kids are involved in. Now, at first, when I first heard about this months ago, I thought it was going to debut on Disney Plus. It is not on Disney Plus. It is on Star Wars Kids YouTube channel. And it was supposed to debut today, June 3rd. Now, I'm reading an update here that they have delayed it. It looks like it says Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge will now premiere with 2 full episodes on June 10th. So possibly, I don't know why, but maybe they're not saying why, but maybe due to what's happening in the world right now, they're pushing it back a week. But 2 episodes will be out next week, so you have to go to Star Wars YouTube Kids to check it out. There's
another little piece of trivia too with this character Keller and Beck. So yeah, he's related to. Seems like he's related to Ahmed Beck. But there's another one too. There's a character. If you've read The Force Collector, the main character of that. Honestly, his name escapes me. Carr. That's right, Carr.
Yeah.
His great grandfather, who you do meet in the book Force Collectors, his name is Ahmed, and some people are saying, and I don't know if Ahmed Best has said this as well, or someone else in Lucasfilm, but Ahmed is supposed to be somewhat related to his Ahmed Best's character in Attack of the Clones.
Oh,
because it's a hyphenated name. So what was it again? His name, it was oh my gosh,
Ahmed Beck.
It was Ahmed Beck, right? So
from episode 2, yeah, it's MED-MEQ.
So his last name Medbeck. It's a hyphenated name. So people are saying like they're all related, basically.
Right.
Ahmed Beck and Ahmed. Both related to Keller and Beck, so it's just
that's weird.
I have to read more into it, but I think I read somewhere that the character of Ahmed might have been based off of Ahmed Best, or kind of thing.
Yeah,
and it's also, and he's another Force sensitive, so it's just interesting. It's just fun little
just fun little Easter egg connections that they're doing. Yeah. Also, a voice can be heard. Who lends a voice to, it says who gives a unique voice to the dark side, so there must be some dark side temptation, and that is done by Sam Witwer, obviously.
Oh my gosh.
So Witwer is part of the show as well.
Yeah. I was one of those kids who like knew all about Star Wars. I would be so jazzed.
It's really cool. So I'm gonna get my girls to watch this. I was actually thinking it was debuting today. I didn't check it out yet, but so it does not debut till June 10th. Now, a week from today. So check that out. YouTube channel, Star Wars Kids YouTube channel on June 10th. So check that out. Now the other thing I wanted to talk about, I think is really crazy news, is of course the new. We were told about a new VR series that is coming. Now, this was kind of surprising because we were actually thinking about recording late last week, and there wasn't really much to talk about, and this kind of dropped out. But ILM and Lucasfilm have announced Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, a new VR experience coming later this year, so 2020. They have announced in collaboration with Oculus Studios, the experience connects to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the epic land at Disneyland Resort and Disney World Resort in Florida. Just basically says that, now this is funny because it actually tells you the time period. It takes place between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. So there's a year in between those movies. This takes place during that time period and is set on the outskirts of Batu's Black Spire outpost of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Will give players the opportunity to live their own adventure and explore part of a galaxy far, far away in virtual reality. The original story will feature both new and iconic characters from the Star Wars galaxy with multiple styles of gameplay and multiple settings to accommodate a wide variety of players, from Star Wars fans to VR gamers alike. So
that's pretty wild.
It doesn't really tell you. I mean, I remember when we first talked about this, when it got released, it was like, well, it's not really telling you it's a game. Is it a game or is it just an experience? It sounds like almost like a role-playing kind of story-driven development, right?
Yeah, the thing that I'm hung on is it talks about different styles of gameplay. So, I mean, I haven't played a lot of VR games. I haven't played any, besides Vader, Immortal, and a couple of the other ones like
Beat Saber.
Yeah, Beat Saber. So it's like all the nerdy ones.
Yeah.
So I don't have a good idea of honestly how far VR games have gone in terms of how innovative and interactive they are, but it seems like they're trying to push the boundaries with this one.
Yes.
Which is amazing, which is what they should be doing, obviously. So different styles of gameplay. Yeah, it's like I love the idea that it could be maybe it's a role-playing choose your adventure type of style versus a lot of kind of obviously what we got from Vader Immortal, which is more of experiencing, you're walking here, you're walking there, but it's a very linear story. There's no side missions or quests, no deviation. But so I love to think that this is a as photoreal of an experience as you can get with this system. And you can decide go to Doc Ondar's, you can go to Ronto Roasters, you can there's quests a part of each one of those. So that's just kind of where my head is going right now.
Yeah, the problem I'm having is I can't imagine the file size of this game with if you're able to explore, right? I mean, it does say in a quote from Scott Trowbridge, which is a Walt Disney Imagineering creative executive here. He says, the rich storytelling in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge has redefined what a Disney park experience can be, and we are thrilled fans will have the opportunity to discover new stories, meet new characters, and explore new regions of the planet Batuu in Star Wars Tales of Galaxy's Edge. So he said, now our guests can immerse themselves in these stories both inside and outside our parks. So not only can you walk around Black Spire Outpost, but it sounds like you can explore more parts of Batuu, right? There's other settlements, and if you read any of the books, there are other locations around Batuu. I mean, that's massive. And
I mean, because there are two sizes of an Oculus. Are there two like storage sizes right now?
So you have your storage, you have your Rift, which is actually connected to computer. It doesn't have any storage. So your storage is all on your computer. Now the Quest, which is the isolated goggles, the one that I have, there's only two storage sizes. There's the 32 gig right now and the 64 gig. That's it. Yeah. Or I think it might be 64 and 128. It might be, but I have the smaller one. I think I have the 64 actually. So yeah, with this, I'm assuming later this year they're probably going to come out with a new one that's bigger. Yeah, and you can download it. Now I've got all three chapters, all three episodes of Vader on there, and I've got a couple games. I've got Beat Saber. I've got a couple games my daughters play. I'm still only using half the space. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I have a lot of content on there, but I do feel like this has got to be 50 gigs at least. Well,
isn't normal? That's the average nowadays. That's like the average open world game size.
I think so.
Like.
But you're talking about an Xbox game, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just a normal console game. I mean, that was kind of what's like the last game, like Fallen Order. Was about 50. So that wasn't huge open world. Like that was decently open.
Decent, but the question becomes, how does that translate when you're in virtual reality?
Mm-hmm.
Is that more information, or are they able to hide a lot of that? A lot of the renderings with basically what you're looking at. So, yeah, I don't. Maybe they have that figured out, and obviously they have to if they're going to put this game out there. No one can sit there and wait 3 days for something that's 200 gigs to download.
There's. I mean, I'm not into the video game world as much as I'd like to. I'm trying to, but like I know, like recently with the Unreal game engine,
yes,
it's all like pretty much real time. It's basically real milliseconds. Is how.
I mean, that's what the Void is.
It's the
Unreal. Or I'm sorry, the Volume.
Yeah, it's using that game engine, so it's real time. So. Yes. And then I watched this long video of the newest version of the Unreal Engine, and it's supposed to just take it to the amazing next level. And and again, I don't know much about it, so if the Oculus is able to, I imagine it could take games that are created with these real time kind of thing, or if you can use the engine inside of I don't know how it works, honestly. We need Cody. Cody's kind of more so a video game expert than I am, but. Yeah. If we can get that level of real-time rendering in a VR headset, then yeah, I mean, I think they could do a lot. They could definitely, you can run around if you've mapped out the space. I guess you can run around Batu.
Yeah,
for real.
I think the thing about it is when you're talking about, at first when I heard wind of this, mm-hmm. I was under the impression that maybe this is kind of like what we do at work really is that you can create a virtual reality experience for somebody that can't go to the park. Yeah. You basically go around Batu and you film 360 mm-hmm. and then you make a virtual reality so that when I put the goggles on, it looks like, it's actual practical mm-hmm. cameras that are capturing what I'm doing. Now it's not live, obviously. It's mm-hmm. and there's no real interaction at that point. You're just kind of a spectator, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought maybe that was, you can still make some choices in there. Like you can say, go here and the camera just takes you somewhere, but you're limited to what you can do, right? But no, because of the imagery that's released here, this is a fully rendered mm-hmm. game. Mm-hmm. Like you said, using the game engine, probably the Unreal Engine, that is making you interact with this location. So I haven't played now. I've wanted to. I haven't done it yet, but there are games out there that have been released on Oculus that are kind of mission-based, mm-hmm. First-person type games. There's one called I think it's called Arizona something, where it's a zombie game, and I'm thinking about playing it because you've got weapons and there's zombies coming at you, and it's like Walking scary. Dead. In virtual reality,
turn around and see a zombie.
Yes, so I'm a little freaked out by doing it. But there's games out there. There's another game that's called Climb that I haven't. You actually physically, you're climbing up climbing up walls, and trying to make it to the top of things. So, again, so I feel like the first step of this has to be still a little bit contained. Where it's not really open world, but there are missions. I think maybe the different gameplay that could be referring to is you might be able to choose different characters and do different things, go different places, or maybe you could choose, like you said, choose your own adventure. Like I want to go to Doc Ondor's and do a mission from Doc, or I want to go to Oga's and get a mission from Oga, or get a task from Oga or something, and I don't know, or go to the Falcon and talk to Hondo,
Yeah.
So I think there could be things like that, mm-hmm. but I feel like there's nothing that would change each time you do it, like you have to kind of follow maybe, I don't know. But it does lend itself to be open definitely for updates and new adventures, I think that there's definitely ways to incorporate that because you do have add-ons still to games like you do, like Beat Saber. They'll add new packs and stuff like that you can update. So I could see them taking this very, very far.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
But no date on when this comes out, but I'm definitely going to get. I mean, I bought this Oculus because of the Vader game.
Yeah.
And the Vader game is incredible, and you can still spar and do lightsaber training with it. It's still pretty cool. So it goes a long way, even though the game itself didn't go very long. You know, you kind of get through it in 15 minutes or so, but it's a pretty crazy experience. So there's that. I guess the other really big news, like you said, we'll kind of touch on before we get to our main topic, is the release of Queen's Peril. Mm-hmm. That just came out yesterday, June 2nd. It was the follow-up to Queen's Shadow by E.K. Johnston. This book takes place, it's actually a prequel, takes place right before and during roughly episode 1. I'll let you kind of give your summary here. Now, those of you that have listened to us, especially in the last few months, we've had a guest on that's kind of joined our Inside the Force family here, Hannah Burr, who is actually a big novel reader, kind of like yourself. I'm not, so this is really good for me. But she's read it as well, just like you, Casey, on the pre-release that we've got, and there is a spoiler review that we posted with Hannah, a spoiler-free review. I'm saying, so if anybody wants to go to our Facebook and Twitter and kind of catch up on that, it's on our website too, InsideTheForce.com. But I want to give Casey the floor right now to kind of give your spoiler-free review of this book, because you've read Queen's Shadow as well, and I think like you or like me, I was a very big fan of Queen's Shadow. So I haven't. Like I said earlier, I just started the audiobook. I was out today mowing the lawn, so I got through another hour. So I think I'm 4 or 5 chapters in. Yeah. So I'm really enjoying it so far. But go ahead.
It was a very fast read, actually. How long is the audiobook?
It's only just over 6 hours.
Yeah. No, it's just under 300 pages, like 280 pages, I think. So it was. I was surprised at how quickly I was actually able to get through. It was an awesome read. I really enjoyed this because I kind of wrote a review of it as well. We haven't posted it yet, but this when getting advanced copies, you have to write a review and send it back to the publishers. So I did that. I wrote a review and sent it back to the publishers if they want to use it, that kind of a thing. But so. Right. I mean, in a quick summary, though, this is pretty much the prequel novel, I think, the prequel story that we all need. Really, it definitely overlaps the Phantom Menace. There's the bulk of the book leads up to it, and where it overlaps is really like the last third of the book, and then so it does a great job of doing what Queen's Shadow did. Queen's Shadow introduced us fully to the other handmaidens, right? And even though you
Sabine, particularly Sabe.
Yeah, sorry. So Sabe.
You just repeated me.
Yeah. So, but that book kind of glazed over the main handmaidens we learned from in Phantom Menace, and then we introduced to Corday, and some of the other ones from Attack of the Clones. But this novel, Queen's Peril, really expands on the original handmaidens, Rabe, Sabe, Irte, Sasha, and Yane, and then Padme, the queen. So, yes. You really learn each of the girls, of the women, their strengths and talents. Again, you got that in Queen's Shadow, but this shows you how they all met, how they all were selected, and the challenge that Padme has of uniting them all to be this cohesive team, this family, basically, where they know each other to the deepest levels, and basically together they are leading Naboo. They are a seamless unit. Each one has a very specific skill that complements the other. That it's basically each finger of a hand, where they all are leading Naboo, especially during this time where. It's like as soon as they kind of, get together, then the Trade Federation comes. And that's where the Phantom Menace events that we all should know. And
Yeah.
what's great though about this, I can see it as a negative towards the book. For those of you, if you haven't seen Phantom Menace, and maybe this is your first introduction to Star Wars, which it very well could be, this novel. First of all, it's a great introduction because Padme is you said this a lot. We've said this a lot in the show. Like, she is becoming more and more such a highlight of the prequel era. Such a leading character of that era. This book is it could be a great debut for someone who doesn't know Padme yet, especially Sabe and the other handmaidens. But when it gets to the point of the Trade Federation and the invasion, and the conflicts, E.K. Johnston, the author, kind of brushes over and the actual events that we see in the film, and instead focuses on the point of view of Padme. But even to that point, it's a little minimalized in a sense. Really you're focusing on the point of view of Sabe, of the other handmaidens,
right?
How in events on Naboo that we don't see. So what's great is that you do get introduced to so many characters from the Phantom Menace film. Qui-Gon, little Anakin. You get glimpses of Palpatine, Maul, and it's great insight to even those characters. Like, she writes those characters so well. Like, I want to see how she writes Palpatine and Sidious, because it's the little bit that she does is spectacular. But so that was kind of my thing. It's like, I love seeing this from their perspective, the handmaidens and the perspective. It's it was kind of weird not getting the events of Phantom Menace, but just go watch the movie, obviously, and you get those events. This is a different story in a sense. This is a different point of view. So I loved it. I really loved it. I think this is a must read, and I know Hannah agrees in her review that we posted. This is a must read obviously for any Star Wars fan, but prequel fans, or if you're on the fence of the prequels, read this book, because there's politics. E.K. Johnston is not shy about, like, she loves the prequels and she loves Phantom Menace. So she's not shy about the politics, and she's not shy about aspects that people don't like. So this book is a great kind of a love letter for the prequels and for Padme, and it's great. It's definitely read it. It's an easy read, fast read. It's a young adult novel, so it's kind of for that middle-aged 12 to 18-year-old demographic. But recommend it. Definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I'll share more. But the one thing I'll add on the audiobook side, just like Queen Shadow, it's narrated by Catherine Tabor.
Yeah.
Who is the voice of Padme. So it's so awesome to hear her when she speaks like Padme. It's like Padme telling you a story. It's fantastic.
That's her voice when she's the queen. Do they pitch it down just like they do in the movie? She does change her fluctuation a little bit when she's doing Padme versus Amidala.
Yeah. She's not, obviously, I will say she's not great in doing different voices like Mark Thompson would be, right? So
like Panaka maybe, or
exactly. You can't expect any of that, but
that's a good range, yeah.
But she does really well with her handmaidens so far and stuff like that. I think you're right. I think with Hannah's review, she kind of named it Dual Identities, because it is interesting to hear, at least what I'm hearing in the first few chapters, is the difficulty of creating that dual identity with who she was as Padme to who she is as Amidala. And I'm looking forward to really diving into that and understanding that a little bit more. And I think it is important for anybody that is a prequel fan. I think these stories, Queen Shadow, as well as this, as well as Master and Apprentice, as well as even Dooku's audiobook. I think these are all stories that are just enriching this time period. And I think this time period, I'm just so thankful for Lucasfilm and Star Wars to still keep exploring this time period, because it is important. And I think you can go back to what Filoni was saying in Galaxy and Star Wars gallery that, there's meaning into Phantom Menace, and
Mm-hmm.
it does set up the entire saga that we know
Yeah.
of.
Mm-hmm.
And all these stories that are coming out in these novels and comics are really just kind of lending more perspective and support to these characters. And it's turning the way you view these movies.
Yeah.
And to me, it's changing them for the better, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as I finished Queen's Peril, I immediately wanted to watch Phantom Menace because it works so well with it. And then, like, as soon as you watch Phantom Menace, you had to read Queen's Shadow because it backs. It's just it, and I love that. I love that it's just you just are driven to just continue consuming these stories and
Yes.
and internalizing these stories. I mean, this book, with Padme and the Handmaidens, I mean, each of them are. It's great to see, the dual identity aspect of it because they struggle so much with just being kids, just being teenagers and young girls, trying to still satisfy that urge of being a teenager, as well as putting on the face of royalty.
Right.
Each of them have to do that, because each of them share the duty as a queen at some point. So it's fun. It's fun to read those scenes where they struggle and they go back and forth, and there are scenes where they're just talking. They're in their room and they're just talking to each other, and you're learning about these characters in the same way where they have to put on the face and they have to hold back so much emotion, like the queen, if you're stoic, and so you're still learning much more about these characters even in that sense. So it's a good balance and it's a good duality to just be an audience to. So it's great. And talking about enriching the films, I mean, it definitely is doing that. I love that. And this book, again, it's a love letter for Phantom Menace in a sense, and I love that aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is out there. Of course, everybody could buy it anywhere online, I'm sure, and of course, audible.com is where I got my audiobook, so you can get to Queen's Peril right now. Highly recommend it, I think, for both of us, even though I'm not even through it all the way, but I will be very shortly. So we will keep talking about that a little bit as I dive. We'll actually start talking more spoilery stuff with it in the coming weeks, but we just
which is funny because, I mean, spoilery for this book is interesting because the climax is we know what
the movie.
There's
right?
definitely new scenes. There's new stuff that I don't want to talk about because it's great for to read it for character development. But I mean, it's pretty much
true.
It's the Phantom Menace essentially, but
true. Okay, so last thing we want to kind of talk about on this episode is the one thing that's been kind of lingering the last couple of weeks, which is The Empire Strikes Back turning 40.
Mm-hmm.
We experienced the original film turning 40 3 years ago, obviously. I think it was your birthday? It was your birthday, right? That Empire was released.
Yep. Yeah, we
so
birthday.
May 21st.
We're 11 years apart.
11 years apart, yeah. So you can say I'm 11 years younger than Empire. That's good. Because I was born the same year as episode 4, not the same month or date, but they're 7 months older than me. That's fine.
Yeah. They're a grade level above you.
Yes.
If we're talking about school.
Schooling wise, yeah. So Empire released 40 years ago. I kind of wanted to just throw out some topics real quick for us to talk about and kind of reflect on it. I think Empire, it's our favorite film of the Skywalker saga. At least that's how we've ranked them in the past. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt for me that it is still my favorite, and I think is the best film of the 9 movies that we're talking about. So I guess the first thing I want to kind of throw out there to us is I think it's at the top of a majority of Star Wars fans. I don't think that's debatable. It's debatable, but not, I think there's a majority of people that consider it still at the top of their
yeah.
list. What is it, after looking at all 9 of these films now, what is it particularly that makes it the best? Like, why haven't films that have come after it been able to top it?
That's a good question too, because I feel like I've read in some places where when it initially came out, I mean, it was still groundbreaking, but wasn't there a split on it when it came out? So it's like
very similar to what we experienced with Episode 8, I feel like.
Exactly. So I'm so interested to see, like, I want to get a glimpse of the future to see if Episode 8 will eventually become, I mean, it is people's favorites already, which is great.
It is, yeah.
But anyways, about Empire Strikes Back, the only reason it really is for me, which I'm assuming it's pretty universal in a lot of regards, is it's such a dramatic, to use kind of this metaphor that JJ uses, it's like it's a pendulum shift.
Yeah.
It's such a shift from A New Hope, and it's a much more mature shift. Your audience is growing, so you kind of want your stories to mature as along with your audience. And I think Empire definitely treats the audience maturely and gives you a story to reflect that. And so these characters are challenged way more than they were in A New Hope, and story wise, it's much more enriching story. Like, you have so much more happening and going forward, and satisfying in a way, even though it doesn't end happy. It ends with hope, and like the very, very last fragment, kind of, for me at least, it ends with hope. But that's always touted as the bad guys winning in a sense. So it's a tragic story, but it's also satisfying in that way, and it has obviously one of the greatest twists in cinema history and some of the greatest lines in cinema history, and even compare even the lightsaber battles, even the action of it is a step up. It's, and the fight of Luke and Vader on Hoth is still one of the best fights. So it just has so many of those elements going for it, I think, is why it's just so many positives. And again, it's with time. I wasn't there 1980, so I don't know how people received it. I only hear that it was mixed. So who's to say, Episode 8 won't be like that with time, because it has good things going for it, but so I just feel like universally Empire is popular because of that, because of the strong storytelling, the character developments and arcs that are happening, and the twists, and obviously Yoda and lightsaber. It's just it definitely has a lot going for it in those sense. It adds much more to the galaxy.
Yeah, I think I still go back to when the original trilogy was re-released as special editions in 1997. Prior to that, in 1996, the 3 movies were released for the last time on VHS as theatrical versions, right? Mm. And I remember that on those video cassettes, there were interviews with George Lucas at the end of those movies, or it might have been prior to the movie playing. Mm. I'll never forget them, because I think they were very in-depth discussions about each of those movies. And the one thing I will never forget that he described the trilogy as, and I think he obviously him being the creator, he knew it the best, but he explained them as, look, in the first movie, you introduce the characters. Mm-hmm. In the second movie, you put the characters in the worst possible situation. Mm-hmm. And the third movie, they get out. Mm-hmm. And they overcome, right? Very simple logic for a trilogy, but that's the original trilogy. And mm-hmm. I think what's so great about The Empire Strikes Back is just that, is we got introduced to these characters, but we didn't really get to know them. Mm-hmm. You got to know the situation that they did, and they got introduced, and you cheered them on. But in Empire Strikes Back, this is where you really felt deeply emotionally invested mm-hmm. into Luke into Leia, into Han,
Mm-hmm.
and because those are the three characters that you're rooting for in this trilogy, right? You know, you have obviously Chewbacca and Lando eventually, but these are the three that were introduced to us as the main characters of this trilogy. And at that point, going into Empire, you know, if you didn't know the story, you just knew Vader was this evil bad guy, and they were trying to escape him. You know, so to me, that's what makes it so great, is that you feel the emotion that these characters are going through. Luke struggling with learning how to be a Jedi, and all of a sudden getting the revelation that somehow there's some connection with Vader. And ultimately, like you said, the big reveal is revealed later. And you can, when he yells no, I mean, you're yelling no right along with him, you know? And then, of course, you have Han and Leia that are just put in an impossible position. Han is virtually almost killed, basically. We have no idea if it, you know, prior to Return of the Jedi, you had no idea what was going to happen with him. So it truly at the end of that movie, watching it for the first time, you're just exhausted because you're like, what the heck just happened? And how are they going to get out of this? You know, because you know the rebels are just kind of floating in space. They don't have no base to go to. I mean, it is the worst possible position. Yeah, which is what George Lucas said he was going to put him in. And you know, to me, moviegoers, they, you know, kind of darker movies tend to gravitate to a lot of audiences, and they are more, to me, memorable in a sense leaving the theaters than they are with, you know, there are definitely hopeful movies out there, but I think, I mean, I keep saying it every year, and I say it just to my friends and you, obviously, when you look at the Oscar lineups, those movies are not all hopeful movies. I mean, usually they're about tragedy and tragic events. And but those are the popular movies, and because people, again, get emotionally invested in characters that go through struggle, right? There's nothing more that these characters can struggle with than what happens in Empire Strikes Back. So I think that's what makes it very popular, and I think that's what makes it memorable.
Yeah, they hit on the point, you know, definitely about getting to know these characters, like you said, seeing that character development. Because another part of that is very early on, you know, like Han's trying to leave. You know, it's like each character has their own new journey. Like you're right. A New Hope was pretty much an adventure. You know, it was just an adventure, which is great. It was kind of flat. Yeah, I mean, you understood the core concept of Luke. He was a farm boy who wanted to get out and, you know, experience the world, basically. And he did that, and he got that with all the bad things that come with it. You know, Han is a smuggler that just wanted to get out of debt. You know, he just, you know, so he had a little bit of each one, maybe except for Leia, you know, each one had a little bit of an arc there. Yeah. But yeah, this one, each character has something going for him. You know, Han and Leia, very early on, they have the romantic relationship brewing. And so it's just adding these layers of like, okay, we got Luke, you know, advancing to this next level. I'm excited to see where that goes. We have Han and Leia realizing this relationship, you know, and it's seeing where that goes. And then you have Lando, who's really complicating these characters' journeys, you know, because he's good and he's bad, so you don't quite know where he fits. And so it's great it definitely has these much more rounded arcs and stories that you can invest yourself with. Exactly what you were just saying. So I think that's pretty much it. And again, that's, to me, that's universal. When you have these characters with real journeys that you can invest yourselves in with, whichever how you say it, that's what makes it memorable. Yeah, and especially, you know, one thing I was taught, like in school, was, you know, you think of a movie is memorable, is kind of considered a classic if you can immediately, when you think of it, you think of like maybe like 3 scenes, 3 sequences, 3 very memorable moments. You know, so like Empire, you think of the Luke and Vader, you know, conflict where he chops his hand off and he reveals it's his father. You think of, Yoda lifting the X-wing out of the
Mm-hmm,
swamp,
mm-hmm.
or the Dark Side Cave. You think of a lot of those moments. You think of Cloud City Carbonite. I love you, I know. Like, like those are great moments. So Empire is chock full of these memorable moments. These perfectly timed events or moments or lines that it just worked so well. I mean, you had great actors, doing the story justice. So
Yeah.
it was just a time where all the pieces fit together, So it's yeah. I mean, movies are always trying that. Return of the Jedi is still great. I mean, it followed
Right.
Empire, is still amazing, and to me, even in a lot of ways more emotional. Where you have Luke and Vader's final battle, where
Yes.
Luke is just going ham on Vader at the end. That's very emotional. So sequel trilogy. So you're always trying to replicate that level of emotion and conflict, and always trying to bring your audience to invest in these characters. And I just sometimes the pieces don't work. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so hard to pinpoint it, but Empire, it all worked.
It did. And kind of on top of that, though, how would you just quickly, what's your thoughts on how that movie would do today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If it was released today,
Yeah.
do you think it would have the same reactions that it did in the
So
80s?
I think it would, but only if it's just funny because from Empire, I feel like we've gotten so many stories that try to recreate the Empire story. In
Mm-hmm.
other movies that recreate the Empire story, where the reveal is it's someone's dad,
Yeah.
or it's
Yeah.
the
I'm your
you're the
brother.
yeah, exactly, you're the chosen one to. Even Star Wars has repeated this, which is fine. It's allowed to, um, but this idea of you are the last Jedi, to you're the
Mm-hmm.
last of this kind
That's
to
right. Yeah.
take only you can do this. The power is within you. So that happens a lot. So throwing all those things aside, if Star Wars, what in the context of the 80s, was brought into 2020, I do think it would definitely. Now, if it was with all the context existing, if it happened, I think some of those reveals would fall flat, but it's still a good
Yeah.
story. I mean, overall, it's still good. It's a solid story that advances the plot, that enriches the characters, and adds to the mythology of the saga. So I think it would be successful, no
Yeah,
doubt.
I think so.
So that would be very interesting to see if that would happen. But I think so.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it would still be. I think all those elements are still there that are part of a good film.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There might be some more. There might be more vocal divisiveness on it, with the
Yeah.
fandom. But I do think in the long run, it would be a very successful film still today.
I'm curious if it would be just the nature of how movies are made, if it would have changed with all the technology that we have now. Would they have done more technology wise to that may have diluted the movie a little bit? I don't know. So
Maybe.
it's that whole argument of does it hurt or help the film? It depends on how you use it.
Yeah. Well, kind of in that sense, not if it doesn't have to be technical, but what, if anything, would you change about it?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you would change about the movie, technical or story or
Um,
anything?
I mean, we've talked about, yeah, like special, like if they did a new special edition, there definitely would be some changes just to update some things,
Yeah,
Um, 'cause that's been my whole argument with the originals, is like I'm fine with the special edition because I feel like it updates the technology, the effects, to where the movie doesn't become laughable. It's like, oh, look at these effects, are so bad. It's like kids won't want to watch it. It's just the nature of entertainment. They're too distracted by how dated it looks,
yeah,
which is a real it's a real thing. So I like that they make it feel current in terms of just the effects, so that you're focused on the story. You're not distracted by the lightsabers, the jump cut and turning on a lightsaber and it looking weird, or something weird like that. So that would be something. I mean, it's small, but I mean, story wise, I don't know. The only thing I could think of is if they were writing it, maybe they could. Oh no, I can't even put myself in the context of the other films existing in this time, but like laying down story threads that would connect better to what a sequel trilogy could be, or what a prequel trilogy could be. Maybe if they included other characters or other planets to make it even more united. Because the original trilogy, the universe felt very contained, which is fine. That's the beauty of the original trilogy. So I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking aloud, but I don't know if it would help it or hurt it if they maybe went to Coruscant or if Coruscant was involved at some point. I don't know how that would if it would even help the film, but I'd be very interested to see how they could incorporate other elements of the prequels and the sequel trilogy to make it feel all connected. So I don't know what that would be.
Yeah, well, I think one way you could do that is, when Vader returns the call to the Emperor, you can show the Emperor's side on Coruscant if that's where he's at.
Yeah.
There's ways to do that. In fact, there was rumors for a while that one of the special editions was going to be a shot of Coruscant in Episode 4, where Palpatine, the Emperor, calls Tarkin and them about dissolving the Senate, prior to him walking in there. So there were talks of that, but obviously that didn't happen. I think that you're right. I think that's cool. I think there's ways you can do that, connect. I'm not sure there's much. Yeah, I'm not sure there's much to change besides visual effects. It's so well paced and it's so well done. I there's not much I would change. I mean, technology would probably dictate a lot of locations. Like Cloud City might not have been Cloud City. It might have been something else. But to think that they even pulled off Cloud City in the 80s is actually pretty impressive. So, okay, last thing here. What is your favorite part of the movie? Like what is your go-to scene, or what do you like best? What is the thing that stands out to you the most?
Oh man. I guess I think it would be the carbonite scene, the freezing. I think it would be that. The lighting of it, how it's so dramatic, orange. And the music, how it swells up there, and everything leading up to the "I know, I love you, I know" line, and then the execution of that line, how it just. I can feel the romance of it, I think, and I love that aspect of it. But even how the music swells up when he's frozen and Chewie's roaring. Every time Chewie roars in emotion, we got it in Rise of Skywalker with Leia. That's so you feel his roar, and it falls, the loud thud of the fall when he falls in carbonite. It all works, and that's especially a scene where all the pieces of the lighting, the acting, the music, it all is working so well together and complementing each other. So, definitely that whole sequence I think is probably my favorite.
That's interesting because I would think that if you asked 10 fans, the majority of them would talk about Luke and Vader and the reveal of "I am your father," right?
Yeah.
But like you, I'm not going there either. My favorite part about it, hands down, is part of the training from Luke to Luke from Yoda. Particularly the scene that starts with basically Luke saying, "I'll try." Do or do not. There is no try. I mean, that's by far my favorite line of pretty much all of Star Wars. And I think that whole thing is a big lesson to everybody because I love that sequence. Not only what happens in there, but the music is so good. You know, Luke basically gives up. I can't do it. Sits down, and then little Yoda pulls this X-wing out of the swamp. And again, it just ends with the great dialogue of, I don't believe it. And that is why you fail. You know, it's such an incredible scene. It sums up. I mean, I remember seeing it when I was younger and immediately thinking, wow, like you can accomplish things if you just believe you can do it. And what a great just message. Again, I think George did a great job of instilling those ideals for young people when they see that, to say, look, you can accomplish things, and all you need to do is believe you can do it is the first step. And you got to do those things to accomplish things. And I think it's so crazy to think that Yoda is this 3-foot character, but is so powerful. And that's partially why he's my favorite character in the Star Wars universe, because it doesn't matter how big or small you are, you can do great things and be a great person. And it's just a great lesson to and so to me that's by far my favorite scene. I love watching that scene. It's so great.
Yoda definitely. I mean, Yoda's probably the biggest way Empire is elevated above the other movies. I guess I would say because of that, because of the wisdom he shares and just how cool he is.
Yes,
he starts off as a goofy, funny little character, and then becomes a very serious. Because it's all those lines that he has. Like, I think my favorite one of his is from that movie is. I just had it in my head. Like, unlearn what you must unlearn what you have learned.
That's right.
And again, all this stuff are great lessons for any age, especially today. It's like we have to just kind of if we think we know it all, just forget it. Start over.
Yes.
You got to deconstruct yourselves in order to really figure out who you are and what you need to do. And
that's right.
The whole concept of war, the prequels was a big testimony about anti-war stuff, but Yoda with one line in this one says, wars not make one great.
Yeah.
It's like a great warrior. It's like that just turns it up on its head. So it's crazy writing difference. Like where Lucas had it in New Hope, then all of a sudden, he and Kasdan are writing very wise dialogue.
Fantastic.
And Irvin Kershner directing it. Like it. Just again, all the pieces are working together.
Yep. So there you go. That's Empire at 40, and I think those are just some aspects of what we think of Empire and the greatness of the movie, and makes you want to go sit down and watch it.
Yeah,
for sure. That'll do it for this week. I think the last thing I just want to hit on is, next week. Wow, we're doing 300 episodes next week. Cannot believe it's been that long. Looking forward to figuring out. Well, I'm not even exactly sure what we're gonna do, if it's gonna be any different. But it's a testament to how long we've done. I wanted to kind of just lay it out there that we did our first episode March 25th, 2013.
Yeah.
So just over 7 years ago, right?
7 years sounds crazier in some ways than 300 episodes.
That's true, right?
Almost closer to 10 years of doing a Star Wars show.
Yeah, and I wanted to kind of just go through our milestones a little bit. We did our 100th episode 2 years from there, so May 27th, 2015. And then our 200th episode we did on October 10th, 2017. So that was another couple years.
That,
yeah. And real quick, the 200th episode we celebrated that by talking about the trailer had just come out. The full trailer had just come out for The Last Jedi. Now our 100th episode, it was kind of a different episode
format back then, right?
We talked about the 38th, because at that point it was the 38th anniversary release of A New Hope. So we just talked a lot about A New Hope, and it kind of coincided with our 100th episode. So anyway, now it's been a little over 2 years since our 200th episode. We are now looking at our 300th episode, 2.5 years. We'll find out if there's anything major that comes out this week that we can talk about, but we will kind of figure out over the next week what we can do to celebrate 300 episodes. Man,
it's a lot of stuff.
It's weird. 7 years. 7 years have flown by.
Absolutely.
If you think about it. Wow. But we started this journey when we knew Lucasfilm was purchased by Disney, because that was late 2012, and we knew that we were going to get new. Why else would you start a show if you didn't know that there was going to be more Star Wars, right? So we knew there were new books coming out. We knew there were new, we knew Marvel was going to come back to Disney, and new comics were going to come out. Now, we weren't totally aware of the whole new canon yet,
right?
But we knew we were getting episode 7, 8, 9, and Clone Wars was still happening, but blah 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 blah. So anyway, we started it by just enjoying and spreading the word of Star Wars, and I feel like we'll talk about this more next week. But it's been a fantastic run, and here's to doing more. So
7 more years.
7 more years. Who knows? I'll be old and crusty, I guess, by the time we stop this thing. Maybe. Who knows? But we appreciate obviously everybody that's joined us, and hopefully you come back to us on the 300th and celebrate with us. So appreciate everybody out there. Thank you, InsideTheForce.com. Of course, again, read some reviews on there. We're going to do a lot more reviews on there. Hannah, of course, Casey, myself, we're going to start. I'm definitely going to dive into doing some more comic reviews and getting back into reading some of those. We kind of neglected that on here. We apologize, but there's definitely ways we can kind of keep churning out, even if the stuff has already come out, like older books, older comics. We can still talk about that. People kind of get them re-energized in some of those stories. So, all right. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you guys next week. He's Casey Cooley.
Goodbye, everybody.
Have a great week. Be safe out there. We will talk to you next week. May the Force be with you.